But you can't improve what you don't measure also. So if all you're doing is measuring placement stage, you can't improve.
Welcome to the Tech Savvy Recruiter, the podcast for recruitment and staffing agency owners keen to explore the tech innovations reshaping our industry. I'm Andrew Roger from RecMate.
And I'm Belinda Kerr from Recruitment Garage, and together we're your hosts, bringing you a stellar lineup of recruitment tech and AI experts ready to help you understand and, more importantly, benefit from the increasing array of tech available to you today.
Hello everybody, welcome to another episode of the Tech Savvy Recruiter. I'm Andrew Roger and joined, as always, with my dynamic co-host, Belinda Kerr, who's just come back from an amazing retreat in the US, and she is one with everything right now.
I know.
She's also better known in the industry as BK. So, g'day BK, good to have you back in Terra Australis.
Hey boys.
And speaking of boys, we've got Justin Hillier, the founder and CEO of...
Man.
I love it. Speaking of boys and men, we've got Justin Hillier, the founder and CEO of Recruiter Insider, with us today. So it's going to be an exciting chat. We had Justin with us maybe about 18 months ago, I think.
Time flies. I don't know when it was. It was a little while ago, but yeah.
Yeah. I think you may have been, I don't know, you may have just been in the UK or just on your way to the UK.
That'd be 18 months ago, yeah. Time does fly. Was I? Yeah, okay.
He hadn't left yet. So Justin's journey has taken him from the vibrant recruitment scene in Australia all the way across the globe to the sunny, well, at the moment, UK, where he's continuing. Doubtful, maybe.
Not this week.
Not this week. Okay. Well, hopefully next week will be sunny for you to continue building your, what I see as really a relationship first, mission driven business to help recruiters.
100%.
I see your product. So today I think we've got a couple of topics we'll run through, Justin. You've just dropped a report, which is really interesting. We'll put it in the show notes for anybody who wants to download a copy. But instead of me introducing you a little bit more, how about you just say hello for those that don't know you and your background, Justin?
If they don't know me, where have they been, Andrew?
This is true.
It's been about 25 years now in recruitment, mostly in Australia, doing various things. So started back in 2001 as a recruiter, did that for a few years, but had the epiphany, the light bulb moment back in 2016 to measure and improve the candidate and client experience on the back of what I can only describe as the world's worst consultant call to a candidate to me that I experienced that led to all of this. It was a shocking call. Truth be told, and I've told this story a million times, I wanted out of the industry. I'd done everything I thought I wanted to do. And as this industry tends to do, it sucks you back in. You're not allowed to leave. So I came up with this whole concept of measuring the candidate and client experience really specifically throughout the hiring process, asking very specific questions, moving away from the, very generic and not very useful NPS, or as I like to call it now, not particularly specific approach, and really getting into a view of the consultant's skills at the same time and aligning that experience to that and understanding where can we improve the process to improve outcomes.
Yeah, it's been a great journey. I've been really fortunate to watch that grow, Justin. So thanks for sharing that with us. Before we jump into the report, you just sparked something in my memory bank that I think you might have taught me around not just surveying or assessing success, which as many recruiters do at the end of the cycle. They send out their customer satisfaction surveys to the hiring manager and to the candidate. How did we do? And of
course we did well.
Hopefully. You'd hope you get a glowing review by one or both parties in that stage. But I firmly believe, and I tell my customers every day that they should survey throughout the process where it makes meaningful data points to track how their teams are tracking along with customer success.
Yeah, it's kind of nuts that agencies, and especially across Australia and New Zealand, are being led down a path, very much so, to just ask people that you place. You engage with a hell of a lot more people than what you place. And if you're not providing them a great service and understanding what that experience looks like, you're actually potentially hurting your brand. And you're not benefiting or improving your business at the same time by understanding where the gaps are and where processes fall down and where consultant skills need focus and attention. So I have an analogy that I quite often use. If you're just asking for feedback at the placement stage, it's kind of like asking your husband or wife on your wedding night whether they love you or not. You pretty much should know the answer, I reckon. But if you get any other answer than, oh yes, of course, dear, I love you, then you've just wasted a day, a whole lot of money. And that's the same as a hiring process. If you're getting any other result from someone who you've just placed or a hiring manager you've just placed someone with, you've done something incredibly wrong. And you're not then understanding what that is prior to that happening. So that's happened already. You've made the placement, you got bad feedback, but what about all the ones you've missed out on and you're not understanding why? And that's one of the biggest flaws and gaps I see with NPS as an example, is that it doesn't actually tell you anything about why this is the case. You can get a score of 2 or a score of 10 or whatever it is, but you don't know why. So yeah, there's a number of flaws. So we ask really specific questions and go right through the process and post-placement, which I think is just as important, to understand what's really working well.
So you were saying, Justin, before we started recording, that you've done the report and there's been some really specific and interesting data. Let's hear what some of that is and why it's important.
Yeah, so the questions we ask are very much skills-based of the consultants, but also what is most important to candidates and clients to be, experiencing or receiving from the consultant throughout that process. So we did this research back when we started. What do candidates most want from consultants through the process at particular junction points? So they're the specific questions we're asking candidates and clients to give feedback on. We did this on the hiring manager side as well. And that's really given us a view of, okay, it's a skills base, but it's also a value add to the candidate and client are aligning quite nicely. So what we started to look at very recently is what the white paper we released probably about 6 weeks ago now, is into each of the specific skills and looking at consultants by fill rate, because that's the primary outcome, right? We want to fill as many jobs as possible. We want to be as productive as possible. We don't want to be working loads of jobs because quality, we know, is going to suffer. This is a whole quantity versus quality, productivity, lens. So looking at every single individual question of those who have the highest fill rate, and we broke it down by quartiles, so the top 25% compared to the bottom 25%, for example, by fill rate. What are the commonalities that the top bracket have and are performing incredibly well on versus the bottom? And the impact of fill rate from that particular angle was quite compelling. So having a look at the permanent side, we had a look at the top 10. There's basically 15 questions that a candidate is asked throughout the process, so 5 at 3 different stages. And we differentiate that by perm and contract. So there's 15 different questions for each. So we broke down perm and contract. And if I have a quick look, I'm not sure I'm sharing my screen here. You can still see me, right? Yep, cool. I just need to go back to the data. There's just so much data in this report, I can't remember everything off the top of my head. It's kind of nuts. So having a look at the impact of something like explaining the interview process and timeframes had a 25% uplift on fill rates of those in the top fill rate bracket compared to the bottom. So getting one question, one piece of information across to a candidate correctly, telling them what's going to happen next and how long that might take, has a profound impact on fill rates. And this has been an interesting question. I raise this question all the time with our clients. This is the one they typically always all fall down on. It's not information that's readily shared by the consultant, because I don't think consultants really appreciate the candidate's position in needing to know what's going to happen next. This is kind of the biggest gap when you're a candidate dealing with an agency or dealing with an employer even directly. Great, you've just screened me, you've just had an interview, now what? And they don't tell them anything. It's like, here's the hiring process, here's a projected start date, here's what's going to happen between now and then. That is so simple to do, yet it's been missed. And candidates will be in that mix for that job, but also potentially half a dozen or 10 more that they're talking to and applying to. So how are they going to juggle their time and those start dates and those hiring processes, because they can't do all 10. They've got to pick and choose. So that information is so critically important to be sharing, but it's not happening. Yet the consultants who have the best fill rates are doing that the best.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I was just having a flashback moment to the Uber story, where part of their development of the app was showing you where that vehicle was.
Where the car is and when it's going to arrive. Yeah.
That's it. So similar to that candidate journey, if I know...
Or your pizza, when's your pizza going to arrive? Domino's do that, right? Yep.
Yeah, exactly right. Some, high volume businesses are managing to do that, managing customer expectations around time. And comparatively, we do very small volumes in our space.
Yes.
Yeah, to pizza deliveries, let's say, or Uber pickups or drop-offs. So,
I mean, tell me you don't sit there when you've ordered an Uber and go, how far away is it? How far away is it? And I don't order Domino's, but I assume if I ever did, I'd be looking at that going, where's my pizza? Where's my pizza? I want my pizza.
Yeah. So I think Yeah, they've just obviously tapped into human nature, and they know that the drop off would be, if I'm blind, not knowing how long that journey is or how long the wait period is till I get the thing I'm waiting for, i.e. a job or a vehicle or a pizza. You're going to have much more discontent.
I've got 2 emails this morning. I've ordered some stuff online. I'm sure you both would experience this as well. You get the email saying your delivery of whatever it is you've just ordered is like 2 days away, and now it's 1 day away. Like, it's keeping you up to date. Why? And this is a fascinating statement or question to put out there. Why can every other industry do that except for recruitment? What's going to happen next?
What was the increase in pay? Did you say 15%?
25.
25%.
That's massive.
25% uplift in fill rate by purely sharing that information.
Wow. Top tip for today, guys. Whoever's listening to this, build that part of the process. It'll cost you nothing.
Yeah.
It literally costs you nothing. All it does,
Take you 10 seconds.
It's funny. I have this kind of pushback from consultants when we take them through the training. Oh, we don't always know exactly what's going to happen. There's one word in that sentence you need to remove. Exactly. Because nothing's exact, nothing's perfect. You do know what's going to happen next because exactly. So I actually advise our clients, if you've worked with our client before in numerous times, create a one-pager. What does their typical hiring process look like? They typically have an interview with the HR manager and the hiring manager. It then goes to the regional director or whatever. You meet a team member. You might meet with a CEO, depending on the size of the business or whatever it is. You know that path and that journey. Create that one pager. You've got that then for every single client you work with. That's great collateral to be sharing with the candidate when you're putting them forward. It gives them the comfort. Oh, geez, these guys are switched on. And it doesn't need to be prescriptive. It's not going to be perfect. But the one thing, and I ask consultants this when we take them through the training, are you asking the client when their ideal start date is? The amount of consultants I've had turn around and say no is astonishing. So they're not even thinking about, right, this client has to have, and if they don't have a start date in mind, why are you recruiting for them in the first place?
Well, that's what I was going to say, because often the flip side of that is they say as soon as possible. Well, we used to have a saying called hurry up and wait. You're going,
cool.
It's urgent,
Tomorrow.
it's urgent,
I find someone this afternoon. Can they start on Monday?
I can't interview them for 4 weeks or whatever.
Some information. You're starting to draw that information out. So if today's Tuesday, well, today's Thursday, but let's say it was Tuesday, great. I've got the brief as soon as possible. Great. So if I meet someone tomorrow and send them to you on Thursday, can they start on Monday? Because that is as soon as possible. Like Monday's typically the start date, right? So the next Monday, can they start then? No, they can't do that. Why not? Okay, because you've got to do all these things. Right. And this person's away on holiday and they've got to meet them. Oh, okay, right, okay. Brilliant. Now we're starting to get somewhere.
Yeah, it's the devil's in the detail, isn't it, with everything?
I think, and look, we say this, we're not a rocket science platform. These questions we're having consultants reviewed against and the information they should be delivering and candidates' expectations. It's not rocket science. It's actually the basics. These are the basics. And I use this analogy in sport all the time. I coach a lot of sport. Whoever does the basics the longest typically is the team that wins the game.
So why are these things getting ignored? Because like you say, they're foundational things. What's happening that's stopping these questions being asked, and how do we fix it?
Yeah, I don't know I have necessarily the answer. I've got ideas of why this is potentially happening. I think a large part of it comes down to the training that consultants get. The job brief, it may not be thorough enough. They may be, and I think that's half of it. I think the other half is laziness of not asking these kind of questions and drawing this information out of a client firstly to get this. If we have a look at the top 10 questions that we reviewed of impact to fill rate, 7 of the 10 are actually client side questions. So it's all about getting that right. And for 5 of those 7 are all at the job brief stage. So it's unsurprising that the job brief is the problem. And I mean, if we listen, we've all heard Greg Savage over the years. It all starts with the job brief. This isn't also rocket science, right? We know this stuff. If you're not getting the right information at the job brief, you can't possibly share the right information with the candidate. And also you don't know the job. You're not getting a good job brief. You don't know the job. How can you hire for it? So I think a lot of it's got to do with the skills or the training that they're getting. It's not quite adequate enough, or it's once they start and get up and running, They've probably been given the right training at the start, possibly, I'd say more often than not, but then that's it. There's nothing after that. So there's a lack of follow-up and reinforcement and I guess quality control and quality checking as they go to ensure that what they're doing in the first 3 months is the same as the next 3 months to the next, and really embedding that as normal. And then I think it's pure laziness that they find, and we are human, we all find shortcuts, right? And we all start to make assumptions once we start doing something for a long time. We're like, oh, I don't need to know that information. I can skip that. I don't feel comfortable asking the client this question. That is possibly a part of it as well. That I think I'll be intruding too much. It's like, no, it's called doing your job, consulting, understanding, and showing the client that you're professional and you know what you're doing.
Yeah. So that's interesting. That first question that you point out about the 25% and the timeline, that's super interesting. What else have you got? What other sort of insights that were you surprised about?
One of the big things that surprised me, we also have the candidate review the hiring manager. So after they've interviewed, we send an email. How did the consultant help you prepare for the interview? But another set of questions just on the next screen. How did that hiring manager perform in that process as well? What was that experience like? Did they tell you about the company and the culture and, 5 questions around that? What was really interesting, and we've done a hiring manager report quarterly for probably 4 years now. The impact on fill rates on perm weren't actually that compelling. In some instances, they were somewhat not necessarily negative, but not impacting the fill rate so much. Yet on the contract side, huge. We're talking. I think it's. Wait, I'll rather than make it up on the top of my head. Yeah, I was trying to remember. 20 data points. Good luck remembering that off the top of your head. Where is it here? The role of hiring manager. I think that was perm.
You look like you're staring into everyone's soul right now, Justin.
That's what I do, Andrew. That's what I do. Yeah, so we're talking somewhere between a 20 to kind of 40% uplift on fill rates.
And you were saying it affects contracting more than perm.
Yeah, contract was quite converted. Now, I've been asked, why is that the case? Why is perm not as powerful? The hiring manager, you would think it's just as important. The hiring manager provides a great experience.
More, right? If it's
I'd say more so, right? It's more permanent.
Yeah.
Like you're not just getting into a contract. You're going into bed with someone. You're working for them. It's like so I think that was interesting.
Maybe not a Coldplay concert though.
Nicely worked in. This was not rehearsed at all either. That was brilliant. So I think it's got a lot to do. And look, I've got no data on this. This is just completely an assumption. Knowing the market, knowing the data, that the market is very heavy on the contract side at the moment, given the state of the economy and all the rest of it. So there's a lot more roles going towards contract than what historically we would see in a more positive market or a bullish market. So I think that's got a lot to do with it. There is a huge amount of volume. So I think contract, because it's the primary recruitment kind of channel at the moment, is getting far more attention and having far greater impact on fill rates from hiring managers. So yeah, the contract difference though that the consultant has was also far greater than perm. So it kind of lined up with that as well. Yeah, so the numbers were pretty much double on the contract side. Same question, explain interview process and timeframes. Let me just dig that because it's the number one question on the contract side as well. Let me just scroll back up here and find that one. That was hiring manager. Let's find it here. Yeah, 60%. 60% on that question. That's nuts.
That is a crazy number. Crazy number.
One question, sharing one bit of information. It's bizarre. So the skills of the consultant, whilst we sit here and go, right, it's the skills of the consultant, the training. I almost put a post up on LinkedIn yesterday. I kind of held back.
That's unlike you.
It is a little. No, I'm not having a go. It's not the right way to put it. All the trainers in the industry, and I know many of them, and they're all great. And I'm not saying they don't provide great training, but the training I think they provide is largely based on gut feel, with no data-based evidence as to this is what this particular consultant or this particular business or team needs. It's all, I've got my training course, we take them through that. It's really hard to then measure impact of that training thereafter as well, because it's somewhat generic. It's not really specific. So looking at what we do, and we're building this into our platform right now, all of this data out of this white paper, we're literally building it so that an agency can see the skills of the consultant that are falling down that are impacting fill rate the most. So if you want to train your team on something, you want to train on something that is going to have the greatest impact that can be measured, we're making it super simple.
It's so interesting, isn't it? There's so much money wasted in business when we just don't know the data. We make assumptions and I'm just as guilty as the next person. Yeah, I think, oh yeah, that's right. And then when you actually look at the numbers, you go, that can't be right. You go, well, they're the numbers. They're right. And when I see so many, because I work with agency owners, when I see so many struggling for that, they're trying to find the next new thing, the shiny new object, the next piece of tech that's going to make a difference, and then I just have a look at their database and the mess that's in. No fault of their own, they've just got busy and they've left it behind. All these opportunities to find money that's already in the business are like, that needs a lot of attention. And to your point, Justin, if all this data is at their fingertips and they know it, and they we're getting these 25%, 60% increases, we need to be teaching people to pull their focus back onto understanding the data and making. I mean, people have been talking about this for years, obviously, but I think now more importantly than ever, because we have got so much more access.
Should be much easier.
It's a hell of a lot easier.
Data. So maybe we're just kind of catching up with like the fact that the tech can provide us with so much, but not just talking about the actual, the candidate, the consultant needs to talk about the timeline, but even just flipping it one level up and looking at data. Should we be focusing more as an entire business on data and looking for opportunities within that, as opposed to shooting out here to try this and try that? I mean, marketing is a huge one. People are just trying this marketing, that marketing, and in small businesses, they're taking away from, these are the guys that are pretty much doing the billings as well. So I think that's quite fascinating and it's hitting home, where people are finding it tough. Well, maybe there's some different angles to go on to have it not be so tough. And like, the questions that you were talking about, it takes 5 seconds to add that in. And that sort of, like, that's a pretty good investment versus outcome, isn't it?
Oh, 100%.
$0. It's only going to sharpen the service delivery that you're offering.
Yeah, I find that quite fascinating. And I'm sitting here listening to that going, what else should I be looking at in my business?
Yes. Yeah, there's probably two things I'd say that, Belinda. One is the data doesn't lie. It literally can't. You can manipulate data, don't get me wrong, you can absolutely manipulate data. We don't do that. We kind of feel uncomfortable when we start to think about doing that. The data doesn't lie. I say it frequently. In fact, it's kind of funny. I've said it for that long now to our clients that they start to repeat it back to me and they've taken over the line. Now, it's not my line. I'm pretty sure someone else came up with it before me. But the data doesn't lie. So you can really have faith in what you're looking at is true. Because you can sit there with a consultant and say X, Y, Z. And we've had our clients come back to us and say, the candidates, they're flimsy, blah, 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 blah. It actually turns out from the feedback that, no, they just don't like you. You're not doing your job properly. They're not having a good experience. Yeah, they're not having a great experience. So you can't kind of squirm around that. And no matter what data you're looking at, and you said, an agency's ATS, I don't think, and I've seen this many, many, many times now in many agencies, that an owner of the business or the director, whoever it might be, gets a bit lazy themselves in the quality control of the data going into the ATS because they don't want to upset the consultants. Now, that is horrific. That is absolutely such bad leadership. It's not funny. I do recall one, I'm not going to name the agency, they're actually not even around anymore, lo and behold. But he was too scared to actually make his consultants put all the information they need into their ATS because he didn't want to upset them. It was like, oh, they say it's too much work. We just, put the minimal stuff in there. I'm like, mate, you're the owner. You're running the business. They work for you. That is literally part of their job. Don't let them get away with it. And I see it. That's one example where an agency went under because they were really badly quality controlled and managed from all those different angles. Once you do that in one part of the business, it'll flow through to others.
Slides, yeah.
So the ATS is really important. I think there's an element, though, and you touched on it there, Belinda, of being overwhelmed at the same time. So where do you start? It does start all at your ATS. You do need quality data in there. Your consultants must be putting the information in there. I know that one agency for a little bit, an agency in Melbourne, started to put quality control aspects on as a KPI and put commission at risk. So it was 5% of their commission was actually at risk if they weren't putting the right information into Bullhorn. which is what they were using at the time. So there are ways to do this that really change behavior and force that. But at the end of the day,
That's
it's
a
your
minority
job.
though, Justin. Those
Yeah, 100%. I've seen it in one agency.
Yeah.
But
I think I know
it
which one
does
you're talking
happen.
about out of Melbourne. And I was sorry, Justin, I was just reflecting that adage around what gets measured gets managed, what gets managed gets done. And without that measurement piece, it's very difficult to manage your consultant and behavior. And, you should want to know how you can improve. And it's not that you're getting a bad result. It just means that's something that you can maybe work on for that particular stage of the cycle. But if you're not measuring it, if you're just measuring outcome, I placed or I didn't place.
Which you know already.
Yeah, well,
Who's
you're
not
measuring
happy?
it, are you?
No, you can't improve what you don't measure also. So if all you're doing is measuring placement stage, you can't improve placements because they've already, and this is the lens that I think no one thinks about when they actually go into this. It's already happened. Like it's past. You can't improvement. It's done. What about everything else that you missed out on, but you don't know you missed out on because of the experience you provided?
To
Those
ultimately get a higher
candidates.
percentage of that output.
Correct. So this is about productivity as much as it is about, improvement.
So where do you think people should start? So if people are listening to this and they're going, "Oh yeah, I've been a bit slack on the data myself," where are they going to get the biggest wins? Do you think to start looking at their data?
Definitely start looking at, and this is something that we pulled out of the data as well. It's not in the report. We purposely didn't put it in the report. There's elements of it in there. In fact, there is a page of it in there. Now that I recall, it's a 12-page report. There was a workload aspect that we looked at. The top fill rate consultants, how many jobs and how many interviews were they conducting compared to the bottom and the middle, etc. So it was literally 50%. The amount of jobs. So it's something like 45 jobs they worked on, 50 jobs over a 12-month period, whereas the bottom quartile were actually 3 times as much. That was absolutely mind-blowing. And the bottom quartile did 4 times the amount of interviews. It was staggering, the amount of interviews that they actually did compared to. So that quality was really starting to come through. So if I was an agency owner, I'd really start looking at volume because this is the whole quantity versus quality argument. There's no possible, you're just stretching yourself far too thin. So making sure that the right workload is in place. So start looking at the ratios of CV submitted to interview to placement. That is the most basic way to start looking at data. And then start to look at those who don't have a look at it from a revenue perspective. I think this is the biggest downfall that every agency owner gets into. Our biggest biller. Yay, they do 750 or a million or whatever. But how effective are they? What is their productivity like? Are they working loads of jobs and do loads of CV sends and interviews and all the rest of it, but it's not that efficient? It's the adage of you've got 2 runners to first base, one with perfect form, one with crappy form, yet they run the same time. Which one do you recruit? You recruit the one that's got the crappy form because you improve their form, they're going to run even faster. So you're looking for how you can improve from a efficiency productivity perspective. So I definitely start looking at those ratios. Then, and this is obviously a large amount of bias here, move away from asking at placement because it's absolutely pointless. It adds 0 value. But you've got to start asking your candidates and clients for feedback. Everyone that you engage with is going to add constructive feedback. So that's a term we use quite often. Everyone that you're screening out, they're not going to add constructive feedback because they're not happy. So you've just told them no. It's the ones you're putting into the hiring process, the ones you're interviewing and putting forward to clients. We are a service industry. I think everyone starts to look at recruitment, and agency owners get in this because they look at that revenue number, sales. We are not a sales industry. We are a service industry. And it's been said time and time again, Greg Savage is one who bangs on about this. We reject more people than what we accept. So we have to understand what our service is like to the people that actually largely get rejected, which is everyone who doesn't get a job, which is 90, I don't know a number, make it up. It's going to be 90 plus, 95 plus % of people that you put forward, that you submit to your clients that don't end up getting a job. So even if we take a standard, let's take one job, for example, you put forward 4 candidates, one person gets the job, we're already at 75% right there. And that's an example that can run again and again and again and again.
These are quality candidates that were...
Correct. You're not putting them forward otherwise, I hope. Yeah.
Well,
so if you've got that average on one job, 75%, And, you might put 3 forward, one instance at 66. We're going to be at 75, 80, 90% comfortably of people that don't get the job. They've engaged with your business. Your consultants have interacted with them. What do they say about your business? Because that is more important than the one person who actually got the outcome they were looking for. So we're missing a massive beat in not doing that and understanding how can we improve the process, or because let's say you do put 3 or 4 candidates forward, no one gets the job, you blame the client. Chances are it's probably you.
So Justin, it's 18
That's what the data shows.
Yeah. So it's 18 months or so since we caught up. What's changed in the way that your platform's helping people? How have things evolved? How much are you integrating AI? Just keen to know.
The old AI question.
Well, just keen to know because it's 18 months is probably equivalent to 100 years when it comes to AI.
Last 18 months, that's for sure.
It is.
Yeah,
look, it's fascinating. So we sat there for, I reckon, 18 months. When did ChatGPT come out? 2022, the end of 2022. So we sat there. So we sat there for a good 18 months. When it first came out, we're like, oh, this sounds really good. It was obviously new. No one knew what it was really about. Started playing around with it. It's fancy. It's fun. The business, how it correlates to business. No one was really starting to pick up on that yet. It was just this nice new shiny thing we all started to play around with and ask it stupid questions, see how smart it was. So it started to then get into that application stage of what can we do with it from a business perspective. I kid you not, 2023 and probably half of 2024, I kept on saying to my business partner, Brad, we really need to put AI into the platform. Whether it's ChatGPT or Copilot or whatever it is, we need to start getting AI into the platform because we have so much data that we can use to analyze and come up with some cool stuff. Everything other than AI got in the way of that. So we wanted to build all of these other things with different priorities. But I kept saying, we so need to do this. We so need to do this. And you know what? I'm glad we didn't do it in those early stages because we weren't ready for it and it wasn't good enough. AI wasn't good enough at that point. So it was about mid last year. We started to build using AI. So it's fascinating. We're a super small business. We've got clients in like a dozen countries. It's just Brad and myself. We manage it all. It's a largely highly intuitive platform. So it's not a high, massive amount of touch we need on a daily basis with our clients, but we're certainly in touch with them a lot. We've been building using AI though. And just from that perspective to build code for new features, Brad, who builds it all, has estimated he saved himself 50% of time. So we can now build, instead of something taking 4 weeks, I was telling you before we jumped on, this new feature we're building on these fill rate insights, I estimated it to take 4 weeks based on all the experience of everything we've built in the past and how complex this is. Brad's built it in about 4 or 5 days. So it's really sped up development in that aspect. And what we've been able to do is then start to look at how we use it in the platform. So we do have a couple of features being driven by AI. So probably the most prominent one that we've released, and probably my favorite feature on the platform, because I came up with the idea. My second favorite feature a client came up with, so that's like my second favorite child. Is case studies. So what we're able to do is have a look at every agency's job titles that they're putting into their ATS, aggregate them based on similarity, and look at the candidate client feedback aligned to mechanical engineers, for example, and produce a case study for that agency to say, we are fantastic at recruiting for mechanical engineers, because here's what our candidates and clients say, right throughout the hiring process and post-placement. So it's a 5-page report that they've got that they can go out and to prospects and go, we are great at recruiting for mechanical engineers because here's what our clients have specifically said on mechanical engineer roles. Here's what our candidates say about us, which you can use from a candidate attraction perspective. So we love that feature. It's fantastic.
And to your favorite feature around, we've got a combined 47-year experience in mechanical
engineering. God. That drives me insane. There's agencies still saying, we've got 200 years experience in mechanical engineers. Here's what I say to every agency who's got that on their website. Go tell an 80-year-old that you've got 200 years experience in something and watch their face. They will look at you and go, you're really old. Or a
Yeah. So I
5-year-old. Do
imagine.
it, do it with an 8-year-old's probably a little bit more switched on. Do it with a 5-year-old.
And so
It
I
just doesn't
imagine
work.
now, Justin, you're going to be able to do a lot more like crossover and finding, I don't know what the data word is, but like this data, matching
Correlation.
this data with that, correlating it and seeing, yeah, giving more, adding more to the story. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, it's absolutely fair to say. So this is pretty much the starting point of this fill rate aspect we're looking at. We're doing it, it sounds somewhat at a high level to begin with, which is still what the data shows pretty compelling. What we want to get down into next is actually looking at this from a job level perspective. So looking at mechanical engineers, for example, what are the key trigger points that makes you fill mechanical engineer roles more often than not?
Right.
What are the
Nice.
commonalities on mechanical engineers? What do mechanical engineers need to know, or what does the job brief stage need to look like, from the client side when you're collecting it? What do you absolutely need to nail that the top mechanical engineer fill rate consultants do to give you that kind of blueprint to making sure you're nailing that? That's
Very
next level
dynamic.
stuff.
Yeah.
That's ridiculous.
That
Yeah,
is
because they'll be
big.
very dynamic within the firm agency, from mechanical engineers to business analysts to marketing
Yeah, it'll be
directors.
different it'll be slightly different for everyone, but it really gives us an indication. And I think what it'll help mostly with is, have you got the right consultants recruiting the right kind of jobs? Because we've seen it in the case study data. We've got a small lens on this at the moment where we can have a look at the case study data, and agencies typically know the consultants in the business who are recruiting for those roles. And we have a look at the candidate and the client feedback on that particular job title, and it's not great. And then we see the fill rate's not great. But what we're not doing at the moment is just that next level to go, right, what is underlying that? What are the key things that they're missing out on to improve that? So I've had a few of those conversations with clients when we're looking at just the case study feature, but we're going to take that into the fill rate aspect and dig into, right, what's impacting that.
Interesting stuff. I think it's amazing, and I think what you're doing is probably a little bit on the periphery of what people are thinking about. So I'm so happy to to bring this conversation to people. Unless they've got a data department, they're probably not treating it as giving it as much attention as is going to give them reward in the business, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think they're kind of chasing a tail a little bit, going, can we, we need more revenue, rather than going, how can we be more efficient and productive? We saw everyone back in 22, kind of half 23, hire every single recruiter they could get their hands on because the market was booming. That obviously was a big and utter failure when the market turned and agencies had to go, sorry, we don't need you anymore. And I had this conversation with a number of agency owners where they've gone, we needed to fill all these jobs, so we need more consultants.
Yeah.
Gone, actually, that's the wrong mindset. Flip it for a second. What were you really short on? Candidates. You needed more candidates to fill those jobs, not more consultants to fill those jobs. Where was your candidate strategy during this whole time? Oh, we didn't have one.
I see this a
Okay.
lot with my guys, with the smaller guys. They get to this point where they've been recruiting, and then they get what I call the messy middle, and they're all of a sudden trying to manage everything. And then they think, I know what I need. I need to throw more
Need to
bodies at
add
the
another
business. And I'm
person.
going, that is the last thing that you need. You need to go
Absolutely.
back and see why you're so busy, unravel all of that, reconstruct it, build a platform that works for your business, and then start plugging in people. And it's very similar. I think it may or may not necessarily be data. It might be something else.
Might be
But it's
process
this.
improvement, might be automation, it might be anything that
But
can help them be more productive and
it's
efficient.
all about productivity, though, isn't it? And
Yep.
I think probably people. Probably feels like a harder problem to solve than let's just get another body, which is very short-sighted.
Yeah, I think it's if you actually take a step back from it, I think it's an easier problem to solve. Putting
I
another
think so.
person on a desk, and let's say that they're not overly experienced, they might have 1 or 2 years, maybe, if you're hiring someone with experience, then that person needs a ramp up time, regardless of how experienced they are, to get comfortable in your business and lay of the land and meet your clients and all the rest of it. So it's not as easy as let's just throw more bodies at it, because they're not going to be productive in the first 3 months. It's going to take 6 months. They're probably coming from another agency that might have used a different ATS, so they need to learn how to use that. That's going to slow them down in the first instance. But it's the cost to the business as well at the same time. That, like, the
Absolutely.
biggest cost of any business is salaries. So you're throwing hilariously a huge amount of money at the problem without understanding what the problem actually is.
It's
And
very
I
much a
think
bad aid approach, isn't it?
And you said it there, they don't know what the problem is, and sometimes it's
Yeah.
just a matter of not understanding what needs to be fixed, and that just feels like a natural solution. Oh,
Yep.
we're busy, we must need more people.
Yeah.
It's not the case.
Yeah, it's a bit too basic.
Yeah, interesting. Well, Justin, that's exciting. Anything else that you think that we need to share with our amazing listeners?
I think we've overwhelmed everyone enough already.
So don't go away in despair, everybody. Download the report, step 1, I reckon. There's going to be a lot of data points in that report that you can have a think about your agency and how it's performing, and are you measuring? And I think that would be a really good first step, Justin. Or maybe you can recommend if a baby step you could nominate right now for agency owners. Maybe look at the small to mediums to think about it. What could they do today that will have a compound effect?
Start looking at your ratios. How many CVs are you putting forward to? And I don't think this is done enough. I know some agencies do it. Some don't have the reporting in their ATS do it all that well. So it's potentially a manual task for some, and some ATS reporting is absolutely rubbish. So you really do need to have a look at the amount of jobs that you're working by each consultant. I think you'll be staggered when you start to look at that. And I say to every agency, you've got 3 ATSs in your business, whether you realize it or not. You've got the one that you're paying for, you've got your whiteboard, and every consultant's probably got their own Excel spreadsheet. So good luck with that. You've got to compile that data. You've got to start looking at how many jobs everyone's working. You've got to have a look at how many CVs they're putting forth that get interviews. And then you've got to look at what that interview to placement conversion ratio is. It's the absolute basics. I know a lot of agencies do measure this. I know a lot won't be. But that is your efficiency productivity piece that you need to be 100% on top of. And your consultants should be aware of what their ratios are. And I think that's potentially the biggest gap.
And it's also, well, what do you do? Like once you know that ratio, then what's the next step? Then we need to go and find out why that ratio.
What does good look like?
Not something, yeah, exactly.
Yep. So have a look at it over the last 12 months. Don't just have a look at your biggest biller. And you know, because you're going to think that biggest biller is the best at everything, right? Because they bring in the most money for you. That you love them. They probably get away with bloody murder as well. So have a look at what their ratios are, and then have a look at the second, third, and fourth people. What you might find, not saying that this is going to be the broad case, but what you might find is the second, third, and fourth highest billers are probably more efficient and more productive than your top biller. Might be, might not be, but that could be an interesting view of going, okay, well, our top biller does 3 times as much work as everyone else. What if we actually pulled that back? Or, you know, have a look at what it's going. The data is going to tell for every agency a different story every time. But you need to get in.
They don't do 3 times as much work, and they
could be. They could be the perfect blueprint.
Yeah,
maybe.
Yep,
yeah.
They could be the perfect blueprint. They could be working half the amount of jobs as everyone else, but they're able to focus their attention on those particular jobs, which is largely what we saw in the data. So your biggest biller, well, your best performer may not actually be also your biggest biller. The fill rate percentage, that is the number one data point you need to be looking at. What is every single consultant's fill rate percentage? And then work backwards from there as to what best looks like.
Yeah. It all stems to come back into, you know, put some information into the platform. Doesn't matter which platform you're using.
Doing more with less.
Basic, yeah.
So we always say work smarter, not harder. This is why you need to look at the data, because it absolutely enables that.
Love that.
Amazing.
Any gorgeous? Oh, what
gorgeous.
Gorgeous. Any
gems? Final gems.
Gems. Parting words. Yeah.
I think I just did. Look at the fill rate. Fill rate. Start at fill rate. Look at the ratios. Look at your highest fill rate performer, because that is basically your blueprint. And then have a look at their ratios and try and replicate that across the business.
Okay.
Amazing.
Nice note.
And Justin, what's the best way people can get in contact with you if they want to have a chat about your services? Yeah,
well, obviously, as we said, I am in London, so a little bit harder these days, but I don't sleep and I am up at ridiculous hours.
We've got
not for people in London.
Listeners.
Yeah, in London, just call me, that's fine. So I am up at ridiculous hours pretty much every day to get back to Australia and late at night. So yeah, easily available. Drop me an email. You can find me on LinkedIn, super easy. Message me on there, connect with me on there. And then, yeah, you'll be surprised at the ridiculous hour I'll call you.
The man who doesn't sleep.
At least for me, it's ridiculous hour.
Well, it's been great catching up again, Justin.
Yeah, thanks for coming back, Justin.
No, pleasure. Thank you.
Yeah, see you in another 18 months, and we'll even, we'll be even further down the track.
I'll try and do the next one in Italy just because I can.
Very nice.
Why not?
I'll do it for. I'll be in the Bahamas.
I'll be still in Australia, I'm sure.
Yeah, you'll be
Very good. Nice one, Justin. Thanks again for jumping on.
Excellent. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Thanks for joining us for today's episode of the Tech Savvy Recruiter. If you'd like to stay up to date with the latest recruitment trends and insights, make sure that you remember to subscribe so you don't miss an episode. Also, if you'd like to speak to Andrew about turning your tech stack into your secret weapon, or myself around creating an agency that delivers you more money, more meaning, and more freedom, we'd absolutely love to chat. Reach out to us on LinkedIn. Thank you so much for your support, and we look forward to seeing you next time.